You are listening to Insights with Kathleen. Please join me while I share my insights and experiences with the hope to inspire you to look inside of yourself for the answers that you already have. As with all information we receive, take what speaks to you and leave the rest. Hey, welcome back. I got Karen here again with me.
I'm back, guys.
Well, the question is, have you ever really left?
I have not left. I am here to stay, guys. You can't get rid of me that easily.
That's right.
Good. I had a little bit of a question.
Okay.
And, it happened to me at work kind of recently. So there was this person, right? And they were born female, but, I think they're going through a transition. I don't know. I don't know this person very well, but for face value, they are female and they would prefer male pronouns and they go by male name. And, I was bagging my items and then, my manager was just like, address that person as like, their birth name, whatever, like, which was female. And where am I going with this? I'm sorry, my brain's trailing off. But anyway, what had happened was they called them by their like female name. And I saw on the name tag, it had a male name. So I was like, oh, do you prefer to be called that? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, and what pronouns do you prefer? And they said he, him. And I'm like, okay. So like, I'm like, hey, do you want me to say anything? Because like, in case like people don't know. And they're like, no. They seemed to like distraught, I could tell. But they're like, no, you don't have to say anything. And I was like, okay. But me and my little fixing body was just like, that makes me sad because I personally know so many people in the community where that is an issue. And it's it's like an identity thing. So I like pulled my manager aside and I was like, hey, so like, I think you like address the person as this name, but I think they prefer that because it's on their name tag. And they're like, well, like the schedule says this, so that's what I'm calling them. And I was like, yeah, but on their name tag, it says that. And they prefer these pronouns. Like, well, they didn't say anything to me, so I'm going to keep calling them that. And like, I felt a little sad because I was like, I get, in the community, that's like a huge thing for people. And on the one hand, I was like, I know it's not my place because I don't know this person. I guess like they should be the one to say it because like, what if, someone was bad and was lying about it? Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I guess like, my question to you, Kathleen, is when do you draw the line between like standing up for someone and, like taking a step back and be like, whoa, they might have to, stand up for themselves? Where's that line?
That's a really good question. First of all, I just want to say, what a beautiful job you did as a person for this other person and for the company, right? Because I think more and more as a society, we're trying to be a little more sensitive to all those other different options out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of your big corporations, they definitely do put a lot of measures in place to make sure that we are being respectful of all.
Oh, of course.
Right? And no matter their preferences.
Yeah.
Right? So what a nice job you did trying to raise that to a manager. And it's a manager of people.
Yeah,
because, they're looking at a roster. And what a missed opportunity for that manager to see what it was, the gift that you were trying to bring to them.
Yeah.
Right. And they were just closed off. And it's really hard to sometimes when we're faced with closed off people. Right.
Yes.
And it's just, well, this is just what it says and this is just what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Right.
Yeah.
So I think you handled it very well. Mm-hmm. And it is hard sometimes to figure out like how far do I overstep and how far do I stay in my own lane.
Yeah. Of course.
So you did. I think what you did was really beautiful.
Oh,
you addressed the individual because you read the individual space. You read what was going on, and you said, "Hey, which do you really prefer?" And then that person shared it with you.
Yeah.
And you saw that person. In that moment, that person felt seen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's the beauty in what you've done. Now, if that person doesn't want to stand in their power and assert themselves further, then we have to allow them the space to have that experiment.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it is. We can encourage.
Yeah.
We can make recommendations, but ultimately it's really still their choice at the end of the day, right?
Of course.
And I think that you really did take it as far as you probably could at that point in time.
Yeah.
Now, what you could do moving forward is as you introduce this individual to other people who maybe they haven't met, you can introduce them by their preferred name.
Yes.
Right? And knowing your lovely personality.
What?
Hey, so-and-so.
Yeah.
Hey, preferred name person.
Yeah.
And then you share that, like, as you're having a conversation and there's people around and they're going to overhear it, and the other person's going to think, well, I thought that person's name was this. No, he likes to be called this.
Yeah.
Right. So in your liveliness, and then you can set that example that way. So that's another way you can kind of help that individual who maybe not quite ready to step or assert themselves to say, oh yeah, that's my birth name, but I really prefer this name, as the person's introducing them, right? So manager A is saying to employee B, hey, employee B, this is our new employee C, and looking at rosters, her name is blah blah. And then what that employee C could do is say, oh, nice to meet you, employee B, but I prefer he.
Yeah.
And I prefer this name.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you just smile. So that's taking accountability for ourselves. And that's just really asserting and stepping in and not allowing others to dictate.
Oh, of course. No, I totally understand. Like, just kind of being like, okay, there's so much that I could do with like management or whatever. I know upper management knows, but like with this, but yeah, like you said, just kind of like, all right, like, well, for what I can control, I could be like, hey, this is so and so, and he will be bagging your items. And then you're like, oh, okay, like we don't have any like confusion around here. I bring this up only because, in my own life with people I know, I'm not going to be too specific, but I have had instances where like some people, I don't know, some people will just, go with that idea and run with it. So I guess the best example is like, if something's happening, I'll be almost the messenger, like, between my family or whatever. It's like, oh, tell this person this and this and that. Where like, I was like, oh, you're laughing. Okay.
I'm laughing because there's a person in my life that would say, I am not your personal owl.
Yeah,
taking a cut from Harry Potter.
This is so fun. Yeah, because I think it would happen with me a lot. I'm just like going through and trying to process and be like, oh wait, I don't have to be involved. This is between these two people and not me. So I guess like I always am used to like, oh, I guess I have to do something, because usually person A would be like, well, so-and-so said this, so you got to tell them this. I was in the middle of that actually recently. Like, hey, so-and-so said this. Can you tell them this? And then it's almost like I'm the messenger. And I'm like, geez, should I even be involved in this? This is even my business.
Yeah.
It's not my beef, my chicken, or my stew, so I should get out of the pot.
Amen to that one, sister.
Thank you. But yeah, how do you like avoid, I guess you can avoid this, but like, like what message would you tell people? Like, hey, how do you...
What, for being in the middle, being the owl?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. When I was younger, my parents had this very dysfunctional, like all families are very dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
Their relationship was dysfunctional and had codependencies associated with them. And God bless them. I mean, when you really look at the beginnings of their life and the childhood that each of them had gone through. I mean, I could write a book on this, but their childhood was extremely rough. My dad came from an alcoholic family. Like his father was an alcoholic, would beat him. My mom's father abused her, so, but the two of them managed to find each other when they were very young. They were very much in love. And then of course life happens, but neither one of them really dealt with the injuries or the trauma that they had incurred as a child. And they just figured, well, I'm out of it. I'm over it. Right. Yeah. And that was always their mentality. But then when you fast forward 4 kids later and, you have money problems, or you have this or you have that, and life is just happening, then, and you don't really have the tools in which to really relate or to have conversation or to know where you start and stop and the other person begins, and to even have the tools to stand in one's power. Oh, yeah. Right. So these are like elements that were missing. And I think A lot of people could relate to that. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we learn how to relate through our parents.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's who you have your very first relationship with, is your parent or your caretaker or your guardian, whomever that person is, who's raising you as as a little child on up. And that's truly like your first view of how, as a human, to relate.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't question that and you just receive it and unconsciously act or react, then you just keep repeating patterns. So my parents, and I'm sorry, I am getting there. So what my parents used to do is they would be mad at each other, so they would stop talking to one another. Okay? And then I would have my mom say, Kathleen, go tell your dad, blah, 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 blah. I was like, what? Don't do it now. Okay. And we lived in a very tiny home.
Oh.
So like you could almost hear her, but because they were behaving like they weren't talking to one another, So now here I gotta go transit the whole 3 feet.
Oh God.
Dad, Mom wanted me to tell you blah, 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 blah. Fine. Okay. And then sometimes there'd be a reply. Well, you tell her blah, 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 blah. Right. So this went on. And being a little kid, there's not a whole lot of recourse. You have to obey and you got to do.
Yeah,
right?
of
because
course. Yeah.
The punishment and the handout is just not so great. Yeah. So now you fast forward to being an adult, then it really is just setting your own boundary and just saying, for as much as I'd like to help you with that, I think you need to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then again, that's just how I handled it. And everybody's situation is different. But there can be possibly a more gentle way to say that, hey, I get that maybe you don't want to say this to this person, but is it really fair that you're putting me in the middle? Because I didn't choose to marry this individual.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Why was I was thinking that like while I was driving, I was like, I didn't pick this. You willingly.
You chose this.
Yeah, that story resonates with me because I'm like, ooh, that's all too familiar. That is currently.
Parental figures. You chose the other parental figure. I just happened to be, an outcome of said parental figures.
Exactly. And it just feels like, and I think you're right. That does make sense because your parents do have the building blocks for that. And I'll share a little bit, on the podcast because I love you guys. But yeah, like, with that kind of thing going on for me. And then I went into, I guess, middle school, whatever. And I met this girl. I'm not gonna say her name, but like I met this person and they're like, she was like, oh, you're really cool, this and that, like all these positive affirmations. And then I got into a toxic 8-year friendship and I was like, where did that come from? And like there was no boundaries. It was just like hey, if you don't do this, I'm gonna guilt you. If you don't do whoa, guys, guilt is like such a powerful thing and it's just the worst. But yeah, it's like, well, you don't care about me if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And because like, I don't want to say program, but like, because like from a young age, I was like, well, you don't care about, this parent or whatever because you didn't do this. And I was like, but I don't really want to do that. So then, when I met this person, I was just like, well, I guess I have to. Like, I feel bad. It's like, you should feel bad. I was like, geez, okay. And it was just like this ongoing thing of guilt. And you were saying something about like, repeating past behaviors. And I think since I never got a chance to like process that, it was just kind of like, well, there's guilt. So I have to do it. Guilt, I have to do it. Until I, got out of that. And man, am I on the lookout for people like that.
Well, and again, if we go back to that, if our parental figures are our first introduction to relationships and how to relate, and we're watching how they're relating with each other.
Yes.
Right. And then how they relate back to us. And this is information that we're just absorbing and taking in.
Oh, for sure.
And then it's like when you go to middle school or even grade school, then you start playing with, reenacting that information that was put into you.
Yeah.
Or that you observed and you absorbed. You observed and absorbed and now you're playing it out. And then, you fast forward to middle school and high school and you're kind of like really experimenting. And you're like, I really don't like this.
Oh, yeah. It took me a bit. Yeah. And then people are like, ooh, this person. It's funny because, if anyone gets into like, in a relationship that's, obviously not good for them, you're almost blind to it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some people are just like not aware of that, obviously, because you're in it, so you don't know. But like, it was funny because when I was friends with this person, every single person's like, get out. It's bad. Oh, this is not good. Like, even random kids will be like, no. Even like the principal, these things are like, we don't want this person like involved with this person. I was like, oh, come on. She's just had a hard life. And then all the excuses you build onto it. And then later I had a breaking point and I was like, no, I gotta get out.
Yeah, and some of that is about self-love too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that through the years, I've struggled with that, especially in my younger years, and just, always giving that person the benefit of the doubt, giving them more.
Yeah.
Oh, much like you're saying, oh, well, they had a rough time, or this or that, like making the excuses,
Oh, yeah.
but then yet giving more, and that sets yourself up for abuse,
Oof.
right?
Yes.
So you don't want to do that. You want to say, you know what? If I can show up like this, then you know what, this is the one time I'm going to have an expectation that you show up like this.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't, then you can expect that I'm going the other way.
Yeah. because
I'm going to go, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
We're leaving.
Yeah. Many blessings upon you, but I'm out here and the door is slamming.
Yeah, it's crazy because I used to, get a crazy amount of guilt of like, ending relationships, ending, friendships or whatever. Because I used to be like, oh God, like it's my fault that it didn't work out. And then, I don't want to sit here and be like, I cut people out constantly because I'm not trying to say it like that. But, I've just gone to, during the quarantine, whatever, I got to like sit down, evaluate my life and just be like, you know what? Like that, what's the name of that woman? If it doesn't kindle your joy, throw it. And I had a time to sit down with myself and I was like, just evaluating the people that I was surrounded with. And I was like, wow, this person isn't like cheering for you. And I don't mean like a fan, but like they're actively rooting for you to kind of fail. And it's not like, set in stone. Like they don't outright say it, but it's like, oh, whenever I have a new accomplishment, they're like, yeah, but why didn't you do this? Or if I have like some new music or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, this is like not good or this isn't catchy. And like, when I was first writing music, for those of you who don't know, guys, I write music. It's a thing.
Does it well.
Why, thank you.
Wow.
And I had this friend of mine, and I was like, oh, it's not like the first friend where I was like, oh, it was emotionally just the worst. I was like, oh, this is like a good one. So then I would like send the person music, and I was like, oh, look at this thing I did. And like before saying it's good, it's like, oh, but if you change this, or if you tweak that, or this doesn't sound good, or that doesn't sound good. And because I had like, lower self-esteem, I'm like, oh God, maybe it's like not good. Maybe I should tweak it. Maybe I should do this. Until I was like, wait a minute. And then I ended up writing, a song about that. Like, wait a minute, you're never going to be satisfied. And like, that's fine. You don't have to like it. I love it. And that's all that matters. But that took me a while to get there.
Yeah. And none of this is overnight. Even with like saying bye to those people who are no longer resonating with us. It's a process and it's a journey. And even sometimes when we get stuck in those relationships that maybe might not be the most loving for us, there's still morsels of information we can gather and glean from there and take that, right, and leave the crap. But we can take pieces to show, hey, look, I have strength, I have resilience, and look, wow, I had the strength to stop relating with this individual and walking away. But hopefully blessing them, not maybe to their face, but deep in your heart and just say, God bless them and wish them nothing but the best. But this no longer works for me.
Oh, for sure.
And those are hard. Those are hard sometimes, depending on how many years or, how intertwined and how many other things that are going on. Like I know somebody who was widowed and got involved with somebody else down, some years down the line.
Yeah.
And initially that relationship was working for them, but then there was no longer attraction on the one side.
Okay.
But then they remained friends.
Yeah.
Though the one still wants more than just friendship, but will, settle for the friendship just because to them it's better than having nothing.
Yeah.
But the one who's like, I just want who really is pushing the friendship, I think the reason that they don't sever it altogether is because of how intertwined they became in the other person's life with their family members and, and somehow they feel like they're really going to lose something if they cut all those ties altogether. So then they both are not fully standing in their power, if you will.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's liking the friendship.
Yeah.
And she's not. She wants the more, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But it's this, but they'll settle. They're both settling to some degree. You know what? And if it's working for them, then it's working for them. But to what end is it? Fear that stops people from letting go and moving on because they're afraid they won't find something more.
Yeah. It's funny because in the last podcast you were talking about like, you know, men and women, and you were saying something about how like, you know, men typically, it's just like a typical, you know, blanket statement. Like they'll go 60% on something. They're like, you know what? I don't know, but like I'm gonna jump. And yes,
actually, women. No, you're right.
Yeah, men are just like, hey, yes. I'm not super certain about how this is gonna go, but I'm a jump. And then women are like, no. I need to get all the pieces together.
Yes.
And like weirdly enough, I feel like I'm a little of both because like when I decide something, like you know, like even my mom's like, Sherry, when you cut something off or you do something, you're like in it. And I guess I have the aspect of like, obviously I'm a lady, if nobody knew, but anyway, if nobody could tell, I am. I just have a deep voice. But anyway, I'm just kind of like, okay, I need time to like soak and get all the pieces. But I'm also the person, because this happens to so many people, like where they're like, I want to do this, but like they wishy-wash, and like that's fine, that happens. I'm very much like, okay, I have all the pieces, I have all the chess pieces. We're just going, and we're not even going back. And I guess for a lot of people, because sometimes I'll see people in relationships and stuff like that, and I'm like, hey, it seems like you're not really happy with this person. Why are you still with them? Yeah, well, we have this together, that together. They know all my family. They know this. And like, that's hard because I know for me, like I was friends with someone and like we were friends for several years and everyone knew everyone. I knew their family members. Like I was just an extension of that family and vice versa. So like when I dropped the ball and I was like, it's not working. It's so hard because I think another aspect is like you feel pressure from people sometimes because I know for me when I decided to end the friendship with this individual, everyone was just like, but why, how come, what, you can make it work, this that and the other thing. And if I was like, you know, a person I was like maybe a couple of years ago, I would have been like, oh, I feel bad, let me go back, or let me try this, or let's try it again. But I was just like, no. It is done. I'm clearly unhappy. Way too many people know, but it's hard, you know.
Well, it is, and it's hard too, validating yourself sometimes, right? And loving yourself enough to say no. Enough. And putting yourself first in those situations, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because we are taught that to love ourselves first is selfish.
Yes. Yeah.
And or conceited.
Yeah.
Right. That humility is that you have to be less than.
Yeah.
And that's not true. It's not. Humility, by the way, and this is not by the dictionary, but this is how I understand humility. Humility is about if someone pays you a compliment, you graciously accept it, but it doesn't change you. It doesn't change how you're going to behave. It doesn't change you as a person. If somebody is screaming at you or belittling you in some way, but you know that it's really that person's issue, and that doesn't change you inside either, then that's humility. Humility is about being the same person that you were before you've received.
Oh, for sure.
So, and again, it's not written in the dictionary that way, but that's just how I
Kathleen's definition.
That's just how I understand it. Because you know, I often struggled with, and I know that you and I are kind of hitting a couple of hot things, and we're just going to roll with the conversation here. So please, I hope the rest of you are okay with that.
They have no choice.
Well, they do, but they always have a choice.
True.
Right? But you know, the organized religions, and when you go into different services, and like especially around the Ash Wednesday, and again, this is just my perspective on it. You know, I have loads of respect for organized religion. It has its purpose in the world. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, it does have its purpose in the world. Is like during Ash Wednesday and you get the ashes and you have to feel this certain level of and my air quotes here, of humility, right? And then from what I was absorbing through those organized religion moments, if you will, is that I had to feel like I was just this horrible, wretched of a person because I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
Boy, am I a sinner.
No.
Oh, beat my breast, right? Wear my rag clothes
That's
because.
your chest, you beat.
All right, well, whatever.
I'm beating my breast, but go on.
So, and then you just gotta feel like, like I can't even show my face. I'm that wretched. All right. Well, you know what? We all make mistakes. Yes, there is sin in the world, and if we truly believe that Christ is here to wipe away the sins and that God really loves us, then why can't we be more than that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right? And what's wrong with me loving me? Because he's calling me to love me first.
Yeah.
So I have to love me first so that I'm all filled up with good love, so I can love my brethren, right?
Okay, me.
Or my woman.
Oh, say that 3 times fast. I dare you. Say it again.
I just made that one up.
Your woman.
Your woman. I felt like that one better.
There we go.
Very good.
Yeah.
And somehow, like for me, as a person going through that, like that all got lost in translation, and whether or not that was truly how they intended for that to come across, I don't know, but that's kind of how I received it. That's how I saw others receiving it, because we kind of were modeling each other.
Yeah.
So I just want to set it straight that it's not conceited to put yourself first and to be loving.
Yeah.
Now mind you, if you got somebody starving, right, and you're pretty well fed, and you got a piece of something that's really yummy, it would be nice to put the other person first, because you know what, you're getting a good night's sleep because your belly's full.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to throw that out there. But
you're just like the disclaimer, like I'm not like selfish.
Yeah, we're not saying being selfish. We are
self-love.
Self-love, yeah, and that. We really do need to spend a podcast talking about self-love, because there's just so much to it that I've taken a whole lifetime just really understanding.
Yeah.
And then I know that there's still more to even understand. And of course, I'm sure that there's these great psychologists out there
for sure,
who have this all nailed down, and can really just tell it to you in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Anything in 5 minutes or less is obviously quality. I'm not saying there's not quality ones out there, but it's a big vast.
But again, they can throw down those concepts, and you're hearing them, but it's not really registering until you really practice it, until you try it on. And my favorite word, experiment with it. Experiment.
Every time you say it, your eyes get super big, but I understand what you mean. Just experiment with it. Yeah, no, I think it's important, self-love, because I always was like, I didn't even know what that was. I was just like, oh, self-love is that you're just like, going to bed on, like, that is also a practice of self-love. But like, the thing you were saying about like the guilt and like, I'm a bad person, and like people pay me compliments, because like I said in the last podcast, I was like, man, I thought I was ugly for a couple of years, and some people were like, wow, you're like really cool looking, and I was just like, no, I'm not, stop giving me compliments. And now I'm just like, you know what, I take it in, and I'm just like, I can look at a video and be like, you know what, yeah, you look pretty good that hair, like your hair looks really cool. And I think some people are just like,
kind of like how she's looking tonight, man. You should see her. She's like all dressed up today.
Thank you. I got my festive holiday sweater. So I was just like, I know I look good in this, so I wore it. But yeah, I think people sometimes are, and I've been taught, by, parents or whatever. They're like, oh, it's like conceited if you think you look good. Like I had a situation with a friend, and long story short, they're like, oh, yeah, no, I think you're very attractive. And in my head, I was like, I know I'm attractive. Love
it.
I was like, I know that. But, some people be like, wow, that's conceited. I have a friend of mine, and I think he practices self-love so well, and I admire him so much, because it's not a selfish, narcissistic kind of thing. But he'll just be like, hey, I have a picture of me on my phone, and I look really good. Or like, I look pretty hot, or this and that. And he's not putting anyone down and saying anyone's ugly or whatever, because that's not what that is. But he's just like, yeah, I look good. And he's like, I look good, I feel good, and like I dress really well. And I just love that he can do that because at that point in my life, I was like, I can't do that. Oh my God, I don't look good. I look fat. I look this and that. And you find all these little flaws.
Self-judgment.
Yeah. And then some people would be like, I don't even know. I was like, no, can't you see I have like acne or like I'm really, really fat? And then, you bring that into a relationship and you're like, wow, I feel lesser. I feel worse. And, the person's trying to affirm you. And it's just like, well, that's, it doesn't work,
That's right.
Because you have to love yourself first.
Yeah. Well, it's a good test to go look in the mirror and see if you can tell yourself how beautiful you are or how handsome you are. And if you feel like, I'm a little queer. No. And if you can't even look at yourself, then you have a lot of inner work to do. And we're all there. We've all been there at some point. If we're not there anymore, we've all been there. We all have different levels of that.
Of course.
And I did, and I know for myself, many of a year I could never do that. And a lot of that just comes from shame of things that maybe have happened to me, traumas that I've experienced throughout my childhood and whatnot. But I am proud to say that I could walk there and go, aren't you a cutie pie?
Yeah, do you do that every morning? Yeah, please tell me you do that, finger guns and all. No, it's weird just because like my journey into like self-love, because I'm still getting there. I'm like not all the way there, but I'm like, I like this in the direction I'm going in. But I think for me, because I had like some high school videos I did, and I remember something a teacher said to me, because I do a podcast now, and one thing my teacher said to me in high school is like, Sherry, you have a great voice, but if you had more confidence, you would sound even better. Because before I would talk like this. Hey guys, this is Sherry, very soft-spoken. She's like, it's soothing, that's great, but like, if you just were like, you'd be like unstoppable. And I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. I was like, I wasn't mad, but I was just like, I don't know what he means. I talk very loud. I don't know, like, I have so much confidence. And I look back on the videos, and I just see a kid, like, obviously very young, and it's like, all right, I'm going to be poised. I don't want to talk too loud. I'm like nervous. I'm like, hey guys.
It's your mom. I love her mom, but that is her mom.
That is. And that's who I was like modeling after. Because like I had a little bit of identity crisis. And let me tell you what I did, guys, in high school. So I dressed very different than I did in high school. And one thing you will notice about all the pictures of me in high school, I look exactly like my mom. And like, that's not a bad thing. She's a very beautiful woman.
Yes, she is.
But like, it was not me. And I didn't know what me was because I would wear all this jewelry, all this makeup, wear all these clothes that I hated and was so uncomfortable.
Which by the way, not to cut you off, but by the way, when I very first met Sherry, she was in high school dressed like that. And that's the Sherry I remembered.
As you remember?
Yeah. And then like when I didn't see her for forever and got reintroduced to her and her new her real Sherry look, I was like, wait a minute. Okay. The smile though never changed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, it's true. Because like I had to go through a little like it wasn't a confidence thing, but it was like a really stark transition. Because I went from dressing like my mom to dressing a very alternative way. That was like not unconventional, but just like how I wanted to dress.
But that's finding you.
Yeah.
That's discovering who you are.
It was nice, guys. I have to admit, it was nice because I was like, ooh, I like short hair. And like, I think I told you this before. Maybe I told you guys this on the podcast, so I apologize if I'm reiterating. But, I did the stark change. Like, I had relaxed hair. And for those of you who don't know what relaxed hair is, it's when someone has really curly hair, they go to a salon, they put a bunch of chemicals to your scalp burns.
So good for you.
And you pay all this money for it to be straight for 2 weeks. And you can't go in the pool, you can't go in the rain, You have to wear a swim cap. It sucks. So, just throwing that out there. No shade to anyone that does that.
I don't even have to pay for these straight wax.
Right. I know, you would get a perm, but like you don't need a perm. But yeah, so I would get that. And I remember I was just like, this sucks. Like I'm paying like $100-something for hair that I don't even like. And I had do you know what Karens are?
Mm-mm.
Oh, let me tell you, Kathleen. So what a Karen is, it's this meme on like, all of social media. And it's the people, let me speak to your manager. So to this day, I cannot have a bob because it just reminds me of when like my hair was damaged and they're like, well, your hair is damaged in the back. Let's keep cutting it shorter. So to this day, I cannot wear a bob. So I had it for a bit, and then I was just like, Mom, my hair is falling out. Like, even the kid in class said it, and I almost want to cry. And she's like, all right, we can do something else. And I was like, I'm going to chop it off. And she had no say in the matter. So I chopped it off. I go to my relatives, and they're like, oh, Shetty, what happened to your hair? Your beautiful hair. What's happened? I was like, nothing. I cut it. And like, there was like 15 people at this house, like my aunt's house. I keep going. Everyone's like, oh no. Oh, Shetty, are you okay? Are you well? And it's just a bunch of people freaking out about my hair. I think they thought I was like ill, terminally or something like that. Cause they're like, why'd you get it all cut? And I just had to stand to my parent and be like, this is what I like. And it took me a bit because it's hard, but I was just like, ooh, I like having short hair. And then I dyed it, and everyone's like, whoa, Sherry, you from high school and now it's like not even the same person. This is really weird. And I got people who I knew from high school. They're like, oh, but like you looked so good then. And like most of the people that know me now as an adult, they're like, oh, I'm glad. So I had to like kind of fight that criticism of like, oh, you look better then, because I'm just like, I didn't like me then. Like, I didn't hate Sherry, obviously, but it was just like, that's not me, though. That was me putting on a giant mask. I could tell because I was just like, I don't wear this. I don't wear dresses. This is not what I do.
So cutting the hair was kind of like ripping that mask off.
Ooh, it was so liberating. I mean, not like Samson. I'm pretty sure he didn't want his hair cut. But like, you know what I mean? It was just like, oh, this is so freeing. Like, I get to express myself and who I am. And then I discovered more things about myself.
You're so beautiful. So, going back to this employee that you were talking about.
Yes, full circle. Let's do it.
So all we can do is hope that that individual will practice self-love for themselves as and maybe they're still struggling with stepping into who they are and figuring out what that is. But you being the wonderful person that you are, I'm sure that you just being the example that you are and just being you.
Yeah.
And that will just vibrate out. And that this other person who's deciding to be a he will catch that wave and has an opportunity to jump on it.
I will say this though, when I did like ask about the pronouns and stuff, and I was like, oh, like thanks for bagging, my things, and I said their name. And I was like, and I saw a little smile on his face, and I was just like, oh, look at you all lit up. Oh, we're going to have fun. Because I don't know. This is my little secret that I like to share with you. But we already know this because I've discussed it. But I'm going to tell you guys. A thing I like to do for some weird reason, I love talking to quiet people. Like, I love making them loud. And when they meet me, they get loud.
They have no choice.
They have no choice. And it's like my favorite thing.
Quiet people are my favorites too.
Right?
Yes.
I don't know why. Like, there's a couple people at my work and they're very quiet and reserved. And I was like, I felt this attraction, but like not in a romantic sense. But I was like, I want to talk to you. I want to like get you to talk. Like and like I just love talking to them. And like it's happened to me many times where like people are like, oh, like this person doesn't talk, or like this person like doesn't like to talk to people. They're very quiet. They're very reserved. I was like, no. They haven't met me. So there's this person at my work, and like they're very quiet, very reserved, and they just are, and it's not a bad thing. So I've made it my mission every day to greet them, to talk to them, to check in on them a couple of times in the shift, and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And you know what, Kathleen? They added me on Facebook.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I was just like, yes.
And that's probably because they're being seen. Yeah. It's really lovely to be seen. Sometimes we want to hide and not be seen, but when we really want to be seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you again, Sherry, for this lovely conversation. I always have so much fun talking with you.
Me too.
And I hope everybody else had fun listening to us.
Oh, why, thank you. Thanks for having me on, because you're stuck with me.
Oh, yay me.
Yay you.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember that you are bigger than anything that you are going through or anything that is happening around you.